All right, y'all. In today's video, we're going to be ranking every single starting shooting guard in the Eastern Conference here on a tier list, just like with the point guard list. This list is a little bit tough to put together because sometimes some guys you might consider shooting guards aren't really technically starting at shooting guard for their teams this season. And so that leads to some interesting different selections and things in this list. But as per normal, the players are ordered in order of the Eastern Conference standings right now, which look like this as I record this video. And this list should hopefully be another interesting one, although not quite as strong as the point guard lists by any means. That is something that making this video made very clear to me very quickly, is the guys who are actually starting at shooting guard in this league right now, especially in the East, they're all good players, but it's not star power the way the point guard position is. With that being said, before we hop into it, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me push towards the 2,000 subscriber mark on the channel. I'm uploading every single day, multiple NBA videos a day. Would really appreciate it if you'll do subscribe. Without further ado, the first shooting guard on this list is also the best shooting guard on this list, Mr. Donovan Mitchell. And that might be because the second shooting guard on this list, being Derrick White, is actually not Jaylen Brown, who people think of when they think Celtics shooting guard, but he's technically the small forward in their starting lineup. So with that being said, Donovan Mitchell is very easily the best shooting guard on this list. I don't even think it's honestly all that close. He is a 24 almost points per game scorer, good playmaker, good rebounder for a wing. I mean, not great, but efficiency-wise, he's good. He's a very high-level scorer who is playing less minutes per game significantly than he has the last couple of years, and yet is still averaging almost 24 a game. He's an all-star caliber player. He's a super efficient scorer on the interior, especially on the perimeter this year. He's shooting a career-high 41% from three as well, which is really nice. Having an awesome year and has been the best player on a team that is the number one seed in the East, has the best record in the NBA. Got to give the Cavs a ton of credit. They're playing amazing, and Donovan Mitchell is a massive reason why he is definitively the best. Not even an argument there. Derrick White, he's a stud, 100%. Derrick White is a very good player. He is a little bit slept on in casual circles, I would say, but some people also do overhype him a little bit. With that being said, I think on another team he'd be an all-star. I 100% believe that. If he was in a situation where he was a little bit more of the initiator offensively, a little bit more of the primary scorer, I think he'd be an all-star. He's a 17 point per game scorer this year on 4.5 rebounds and assists. Really high level efficiency. He's also an elite level defensive guard, one of the better defensive guards in the league. There is a reason he was on the Olympic team this year, and that is because of the two-way glue guy, do everything and do everything that is needed to be done. Type of player that Derrick White is. He's the perfect role player because he's not really a role player. He's a star who has accepted a role player mindset. And he's a really, really incredible player. Definitely a stud, no doubt. I don't think he's the best, but he's a stud. I'll be totally honest with y'all, by the way. Good chance there's not a single other the best player on this list. Josh Hart. Josh Hart's really, really having a great year. I actually think with the lack of depth on this list that he actually probably goes into stud as well. Because he's 14, 8, and 5 on 58% from the field, 38.5% from three, which the 38.5% from three is elite enough, right? Like that's a near career high besides the second half of the year that he spent in New York where he shot ridiculously, and then his rookie season in LA. Besides that, 38.5 is the highest it's been in his career, but he's still obviously the best rebounding guard in the league, and he's a pretty decent playmaker. I mean, 5.4 assists to 1.8 turnovers is really, really solid. He's a super versatile player who's scoring the ball better than ever this year. And I mean, he's 69% from inside inside the 3-point line. He's always been efficient, never been quite that efficient. He's having a ridiculous season, and I do think he's that stud, legitimately. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is, as a player, I think he is a mid-tier player. At this list, I mean, he's averaging 8, 2, and 2 on 39-29. I'm sorry, he's going down to buns. Disastrous year so far for KCP. This is not what the Magic paid $22 million a year for. He needs to step it up. He's been a 40% three-point shooter for the last better half of a decade at this point, for the most part, especially these last 5 years. This year has been a disaster. I don't know if he's washed, but I hope not. KCP's been a key player for a championship team. This year, though, he's been trash. I mean, he just played in simple as. Dyson Daniels is the best defensive guard in the league, in my personal opinion, or at least right at the top of the list with guys like Chris Dunn, some other players like that. But offensively, this game still could use some work. I mean, he's 13, 5, and 3.5. Not bad at all. He's still, again, only 21 years old. Up to 32.7% from three. Still bad, but not quite as bad. He's shooting a career high in attempts by a decent chunk, by over an attempt and a half per game. Playing, obviously, a significant career high in minutes. Has a massive role now after having almost no role, at least no role in games that mattered for the Pelicans these last couple of years. Not to be this year. He's a huge reason for their success, averaging 3.1 steals per game, which obviously is tops in the league by a pretty significant margin. Shout out to Dyson Daniels, man, having a great year. And honestly, even Meh feels a little low. I might actually wind up moving him up, but I don't know. I think he'll probably stay in Matt, but top of Matt, really good player. Andre Jackson Jr. Look, I think Andre Jackson Jr. is a really nice role player piece for the Bucks. I don't think he does enough as a whole to where you can really argue that he's not in the lowest tier on this list, though. Because I mean, he's averaging 3, 3, and 1. Like, come on, y'all. He's shooting the ball okay. That was one of the biggest question marks about him coming into the league was how is he going to shoot the ball? He's up to 2 attempts a game and he's shooting 35% from 3. Like, it could be worse. You'd love it to be a little bit better, and you love his offensive game to be a little more developed. But he's a high effort, high intensity defensive player. Admittedly, he's the starter, but he only plays 18 minutes a game. This is kind of a weird spot. I wanted to include the guy who's generally doing the starting at that position, really no matter what. In Andre Jackson's situation, it's a little strange because he doesn't play like starter minutes, but he still is technically the starter. So we're going to have to put him in the list here. I do think Andre Jackson's a good player, but just doesn't fit this list very well. Duncan Robinson's having a good year. Honestly, Duncan Robinson's one of those players. He was really good when he first came into the league, obviously as a shooter, a big part of them making the finals run in the bubble and stuff like that. And then a couple seasons ago, he got really bad. Like 21-22 was a down year. He's 11 points a game, 37% from 3, not bad. The year after, 22-23, was disastrous. 37%, 33% from 3. He's down to 6.4 points per game, only playing 16 and a half minutes a night. Very, very strange. He has only started 17 to 28 games this year, but I don't know. The Heat are in a weird spot. Like, I put Tyler Hero at point guard because he's been their main point guard, but I could have theoretically put Terry Rozier there. Maybe I could have put Terry Rozier here if I wanted to. It's a weird team as well, but look, Duncan Robinson, he's 11 points a game on 38% from 3, 2.5 assists a game to 0.9 turnovers. Like, is he an elite player? No. Is he a good player and a little better off the dribble and defensively than people give credit? Yeah, I think he is. And honestly, he's having a better year than KCP and Andre Jackson. That's for sure. I think low Mez fair, but he might get moved down. I think there's a good chance he gets moved. He'd probably get moved down. We'll see. Ben Mathurin is not quite stud yet, in my opinion. I like Ben Mathurin. He had some really impressive performances to start the year. He's at 16-6 and 46-36, 84. Pretty solid. 52% effective field goal percentage almost. I mean, it's not a bad season, I got to say. Is it a great season? Honestly, it's not. I mean, he's shooting the ball more efficiently than it is rookie season, but I don't think it's like all that game changing. He's playing the most minutes he ever has at 33 a game. I like Ben Mathurin. I think he's a very solid player. I'd like to see a little more playmaking ability out of him. He's a bit of a shot chucker, and he's not a super good playmaker, not a great decision maker. Negative assist to turnover ratio is a problem. If that assist to turnover ratio was at like 2 to 0.7, I'd be really happy with Bennedict Mathurin's development, but he's not much of a playmaker for his teammates at all, and he turns the ball over too much for what he does as a playmaker. So, got to go Mets here for Mr. Mathurin. Coby White. I think it's fair to argue that Coby White could deserve to be in stud. Do I really? Is he Derrick White and Josh Hart level? Probably not. But he is 18 a game, 4.5 assists, 42.6% field goal percentage. I mean, he's a pretty, and not a super efficient scorer, but not a super inefficient scorer either. Shoots a lot of threes and shoots them pretty well. I mean, you'd like to see the percentage a little higher. Wouldn't be surprised again if it goes above 37% in the second half of the season. 4.5 to 2.1 or 2.4 on the assist turnover ratio isn't ideal. He was better in that area last season. Yeah, not quite stud worthy, but a good player. Top of man is fair. I mean, Coby White's a good player on a bad team, or actually a not as bad team as they probably should be in the Bulls. But shout out to Coby White. He's having a good year. He deserves to be decently ranked on this list. Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey's having a year for the Pistons. He has been the second guy for, that's Jaden Hardy, not Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey's been the second guy for this Pistons team this year, 100%. 17 a game, 4-4, 45, 39, 73.7. Again, can't put him in the stud tier, but he's having a good year. He's up to a 39% three-point shooter, which was one of the bigger question marks about his game coming into the league from Purdue. So shout out to Jaden Ivey, man. Really has shot the ball well this season, has elevated his game efficiency-wise, and is playing great. Really, I think, taking advantage of his opportunities. Assist turnover ratio could be better, but besides that, he's having a good year. Like, I like Jaden Ivey. Good player. Kelly Oubre. This is such a low level. This list is legitimately going to be so slanted towards the bottom, and that it feels weird to say that. But Kelly Oubre he's probably not buns, right? It's 12, 5.5, 29% from 3. Eesh. That's not great. 29% from 3 is obviously not ideal. How many attempts a game is he at this year? He's at 4.3. He's not really a playmaker at all. Like at all. That's another thing. Like all he is a not hyper efficient scorer. He's never been a great 3-point shooter though. Like 29% is below the career spots, but still 34 is the best he's ever shot. He's had a lot of like 31, 32% seasons. So Never been a great shooter. His scoring as a whole is down a little bit this season in more minutes. I think that's mainly because they added Paul George, but still, he just hasn't been great. I actually think I'm going to leave this because I don't want the Met here to get too filled out. So I think we're going meh for or buns for Kelly Oubre, unfortunately. Cam Thomas, again, another guy who's a young, talented player, and he's scoring the crap out of the ball, and is going to especially score the crap out of the ball now that the Nets have traded both Dennis Schroeder and Dorian Finney-Smith, and may very well trade Cam Johnson as well. He's at 25 a game on 45, 39, 87. Like, you can say all you want about the Nets aren't a good team. For most of those games, they've been pretty competitive. Really, it's only been recently they've legitimately started tanking. But additionally, like, look at the numbers. 34 points in a win over Sacramento, 6 assists. 23 in another win against Golden State. 25 and 6 in a 1-point loss to Orlando. Like, he's putting up numbers in close games and in wins. I really think, man, Cam Johnson, he is a scorer. Is he a great defender? No, not really. It's just a turnover ratio top tier. But he is a better scorer than anybody in the med tier, and it's not even close. And I think the offensive value, I'm actually going to put him in the stud tier just because, it feels like a little bit of a reach because he's on such a bad team. If he was on a good team, he wouldn't be averaging 25. I really like Derrick White and Josh Hart's two-way ability, and they're like just glue guy ability to do everything well. Cam Thomas isn't that. I'm going to put him in meh. He's scoring the ball amazing, but I feel like I'm overreacting to the scoring a little bit if I put him in stud. Josh Green, I'm sorry you're going down in that buns tier. I liked Josh Green in Dallas. I was a believer that he was going to turn into a little bit more than he actually probably has. Now, that's not taking a ton away from him. He's still a 41.5% three-point shooter this year and 38% from his career. But he's only a 7-point per game scorer. He's not much of a playmaker. He's just never really developed into much beyond a tertiary offensive weapon. Kind of just a pure 3-and-D guy. Doesn't really do a lot else. Doesn't do any of the offensive stuff at a high level. Honestly, his game's kind of stagnated these last couple seasons, I feel like, in terms of the scoring and the offensive development. I like Josh Green as a role player, but on a list of the best or all the starters, even in the Eastern Conference, which is the weaker conference, like, I feel like he probably has to go in that lowest tier. RJ Barrett, I think, is going to get the stud tier instead of Cam Thomas. Those are the two guys to me that I'm debating between for that third stud tier. RJ Barrett, he's just a more versatile player than Cam Thomas. I understand his shooting efficiency isn't as good, but he's at 23.5 a game, almost 7 rebounds and 6 assists, 46%, 34.5% from 3, which is right around the career average. But I mean, a lot of good in RJ Barrett's game this season, a lot of big performances. Obviously, the Raptors aren't good, but I just think there's more versatility to his overall game than there is to Cam Johnson. Cam Thomas. I know that the assist turnover ratio is still below 2-1, but it's a lot better than Cam Thomas's on higher playmaking volume as well. And you got to remember that in a lot of these games, I mean, they haven't had Emmanuel Quickly all season. They haven't had Scotty Barnes for big chunks of the season. RJ Barrett's been the number one offensive option in a lot of these games. And the fact that he's been able to put up these types of numbers and be pretty competitive at times and feisty is pretty impressive, considering the amount of defensive attention that has gone his way this season with the other best players, the Raptors, having been injured so much. So I am going to give him that stud tier. I think he does more on the court than Cam Thomas does, even though Cam's been a more efficient and slightly better overall scorer. But I think I'm giving RJ Barrett that edge. And then you got Jordan Poole, who started off the season, honestly, kind of having an all-star year. And he's done a lot of good things this year. I mean, this year's been a big improvement from last year. He's at 21, 5, and 2.5. 43, 41, almost an 84% from the free throw line. Last year was pretty not great, obviously. I mean, the last 2 seasons, Golden State wasn't good. In his 4th season, I think things definitely went sideways. The efficiency wasn't there. And then obviously in Washington last year, the efficiency was even worse. 41%, 32.5 from 3, 17.4 points per game. Definitely just a downgrade in general in his performance. This year's been a big step up, back to 43% overall, 41 almost from 3, like I said. The shooting from the 3-point line especially has been the big difference this year. The assist turnover ratio, again, it's true for a lot of these guys, but it's not great. 5 to 3.5 as playmakers. You'd love to see a little more, especially for a scorer like Jordan Poole, but his scoring has gone back up this year. He's having a good year. Not a good enough year to put him in stud, but I think he's good. And I think Matt tier's fair again for him. So with that being said, I know this list is really lopsided. 1 best of the best, 3 studs, and then the rest basically mad buns. But got to keep in mind, these are the guys who have been the starters this year. Like, I'm just dealing with what the game has given me, basically, in terms of how we're ranking these players. And so let me know what y'all think about ranking in the comment section down below. If there's anything you would change, feel free to let me know. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. And I will be back with more NBA content very, very soon. I appreciate y'all. Peace.